to this computer and we are up and recording. So we've done the land acknowledgement, we've done a smudge, we've done an opening prayer, we introduced ourselves, and I wanted to show everybody. So I'm going to share this screen because the great thing that has happened now is that we can watch videos. And we didn't seem to have that option in the bottom of the Forest Lawn Library because just the way the connection worked. So there's a 14-minute or 1704-minute video, and I was wondering if folks wanted to watch that, or did you want to talk about the book first and then watch that?
What is the video?
It's the author on Clifford through the CBC. So Sheila Rogers talks to the author about his book, and it's about 17 minutes long.
I think I'd rather us talk first.
Sure, let's do that then. So I'm going to stop the screen share. All right. Now, I had a bit of a running order, and just to help us kind of picture us being in a circle. So Maris, do you want to go first?
Sure. I did finish the book. Actually, I read the very last page as you were doing the land acknowledgement.
Awesome.
It arrived through Amazon on Friday, and I crammed it in this weekend. But it was incredible, like really fluid read where like you couldn't quite put it down. I loved all of his memories. Actually, I had a pretty in-depth conversation with my husband this morning about it. And to give some context, my husband is Nehiyaw from northern Manitoba. And I told him, you have to read this book. And he was like, why? And I was like, I think you would connect with it, because so often I've read a lot of Indigenous authors, and this may be a bit of a controversial opinion, but I often see that it goes one of two ways. It's either like very focused on ceremony and all of those spiritual practices, which is beautiful and amazing, or it's very heavily focused on traumatic experiences, life on the reserve, things like that, which is also an incredible experience to express. But this book, I felt when I was reading it, it could have been anyone that wrote this. It wasn't coming through as an Indigenous author. It was coming through as an author first. And then second, he was Indigenous. And I think those stories are so seldom told. And I think a lot of my friends and the youth that I work with, and my husband as well, like there's this feeling of like, if you're not living up to the stereotype, if you're not telling the stories that settler Canadians want to hear, which is usually like about a beautiful ceremony or like a really sad story, it's not being told, it's not being valued. And this had value in itself without having to play into any trope whatsoever. It was completely disconnected from all of that. It was about, like a lot of it, about space and corks, and it was just a human being first, which I really appreciated. I don't know if anybody else kind of picked that up from the book. And I'm really glad that I joined this book club, because honestly, I would have never picked this up, ever. I almost 90% of the time read nonfiction, and even though this was kind of a memoir, it still would have been classified as fiction, and I probably would have walked right past it. But that's the beauty of book clubs, is that you're kind of, it pushes you to read things that you normally would have never picked up. In the very last page where he talks about, spoiler alert, for anybody who didn't finish it, but he mentions that like the 3 legs was a metaphor for Clifford, his dad, and his mom. And I thought that was really beautiful. And it was like this perfect blend of a memoir, which feeds like my nonfiction addiction, but also a bit of fiction to make it more story-like. And overall, I loved it. Like, it's the kind of book I would read again. And I'm going to get a lot of people in my life to read, although I'll probably make them buy their own copy because I'm sick and tired of never getting books back when I lend them out. I don't know if anyone else has that experience. When I lend a book out, I'm like, I want this back. I will hunt you down for it. I love this book. And they become like your babies. And that's one of the things that I can never get rid of in my house is books. I'm a little bit addicted to books. It's a bit
You're
of a
with your
problem.
people.
Yeah, like I've got stacks all over my floor. I've run out of room on my bookshelf, and my bookshelf has like a significant sag from the amount of books that I've put on it. It's bad.
Ah, that's funny. You are with your people.
Yeah, I found my place. So thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to read these words. I'm so glad that I did. Yeah, so thank you.
Well, that's a great way to start the book club, that's for sure. Thank you for that. Kat, do you want to chime in next?
I will indeed. I would agree with a lot of what Maris said. It felt like an author first and then an Indigenous author next. I really loved that he made science super accessible and really easy to read, because I'm not really someone who loves theory a lot, but he made it super easy. And what I noticed also is that the thread throughout the book, he talked about story, how everyone has a story, everything's a story, science is a story. So it's just like listening to or reading these stories. And I also love the bit about parallel truths as well. That really sort of, made me stop and think. It's like, oh yeah, it's true. I mean, even within ourselves, we have a lot of multiple truths within us, and it's just recognizing that they are out there and everybody's got them. I found it a really beautifully written book too, and the last page made me cry. So I'll pass it on to the next person. I agree also with Maris. I'm not a big fictional person. I prefer nonfiction, but I always appreciate the opportunity to read more fiction in our book club. So it was a totally worthwhile and beautiful read. And I gave it a good review on Amazon, 5 stars.
That's awesome. Thank you, Kat. So those who don't know, another form of racism that I've been seeing is Indigenous authors getting poor reviews on purpose. So, folks that are racist put really poor reviews of the book so that they can be mean and awful people. So with that, and so one, if you enjoyed the book, I encourage you to put a good review out there. But I just wanted to throw that out there so that you know the gravity of how hard it is to get people to read Indigenous authors, let alone say something good about the book. So Shelley, you're next in our circle.
Thank you. So this book made me it I'll talk about how it made me feel. He painted the picture of his family so well that I was like, when his father passed, I was just bawling. And his mom, and it just it just hit me. And one of the conversations with his brother, it kind of, I had sat with somebody who was really manic and no medications, and that's what one of the conversations felt like to me with his brother about space. I don't know why, because that, not bipolar, didn't come up or anything like that, but it just rang true to me. Maybe not true, but it just seemed like, because you'd go on, and no other argument would deter him. But that could have just been his brother's personality, which is, it's fine. That's what sat with me for some reason. Like, um, so persistent in the space, in his love of space, which is awesome. I love this book, and I just love how it just it it um how it like it was a really good book. And sometimes my memories, I don't have a very good memory, but just I read the book in the beginning of the month. But um I think he just paints a lovely picture of how, things did suck in some parts, but he made it through. And I just loved, yeah, yeah, it was great. I'm going to pass it on.
No, it was great. Thank you so much, Shelley, for that. Crystal.
Um, yeah, definitely what Maris, what you said about how it was a person writing about their life, and then gradually you find out more that's specifically Indigenous. So it's not like from the beginning that it's this. I mean, being in this book club, I was expecting something, but it wasn't immediately happening. And even in the book, I was like, well, who's Indigenous in this story? Like, how can I figure out who's the Indigenous person and like try to label them? So, and it wasn't letting me do that too. I noticed like I'm kind of scrounging around, like, fine, I'll just give up on that till he lets me know something else. And then I'll just, yeah. And there's a moments of like the family talking about like, what is being rich? Right? When you can provide for your family and you have the resources and ability to do that, versus when that's taken away from you. And so the feeling of like, I grew up in my family, we were rich until we moved to the city. And then all of a sudden we didn't have that. And then now we were something that's called poor. And that real contrast of, and the whole feeling of like, what is the real world? Is the real world this one that we've constructed that has like passive investments that you can get rich off, not even knowing how you're getting the money? Or is the real world like living on the land and tangible and sustainability and, all of that? And just kind of flipping that whole like philosophy on its head of like, hey, look at it from this totally different way. And that was really resonated a lot with me. And definitely the part, with his dad and losing the only person that really understood who he was. Super, super sad, and just made me think of like, why in society do we expect people who have had this kind of loss to be like matched up with people who have had that security their whole life? And you get to be an adult and like it's supposed to be an equal playing field. Well, like, how is that in any way fair that the people who are well adjusted had all of these benefits and they can just be that way and they're nice to be around and they know how to connect with people, and right? So and then the lying on the ground, like sleeping with the sleeping bag on top of him so he could really feel the earth, and how that was like drawing those positive memories to him. That also really, it's a very, the way that he created those images, I could like feel it in my body. That I thought is so powerful how he's telling the story. Yeah. So I will pass it on.
That's good. Really great feedback. Oh, Dawn and then Rosemary.
Rosemary first.
Go ahead.
Nope.
Oh God. Okay. Yeah, I'm really glad I read the book. I wasn't sure what to make of it at first, before I started reading it. Like Crystal, I was really struck by the impact on the family when they left the small community they were in to go to the city. And I saw the mother was such a strong figure. And I think for many of us who are non-Indigenous, we don't have that sense of Indigenous women who ran trap lines and raised money that way. And yet if you have any contact with Indigenous cultures, especially in the North, that was the practice. Women women were as responsible as men for providing food, maybe different food, but as responsible, and roles were quite much more egalitarian and complementary than we're willing to realize, I think. I think we carry an image, you know, in our mind around Indigenous women. And his mother, I think, really disrupted a lot of those stereotypes. And when they talked about the forced move, why did she move? She moved because she took the children out on the trap line with her. She had to. And yet that meant they weren't in school. And then the risk was she would lose her children. And I'm thinking of Little Buffalo, again, the community at Little Buffalo used to live on Prairie Lake, which is an absolutely beautiful location. But they all came into Little Buffalo because the school was nearby. And they had to send their children to school. So it just goes back to all of those issues around education and schooling and how Europeans forced settlement. I was fascinated by Clifford's mind and how, I mean, I thought, wow, you know, he was just always thinking about things. And I loved the teaching relationship he had with Ray or Harold. I thought that was important. I was fascinated though also because when he said he wanted to start writing this, he felt if he did it as straight nonfiction, he wouldn't capture everything. So he would fictionalize the story. So then that left me thinking, so what is real, what isn't real in terms of Clifford, his relationship with Clifford, the ideas that Clifford had, the discussions they had. But Clifford just sounded brilliant to me, you know, in terms of the things he thought about. And I was really fascinated by some of those discussions about, you know, we see what we think we want to see, or we see what our brain is telling us we're seeing because all these images are stored. And that's a real discussion in the art community, where a lot of us who took drawing, we were all exposed to this book called Drawing from the Right Side of the Brain. And it was all about releasing and pushing the left part aside, because stored in the left side are all these images of what we think things look like. And they've done all kinds of experiments around that. And then so you learn how to draw things upside down. So you're really looking and really seeing. I can stop now. I just found there was tons in there to think about, including the void. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, so I initially didn't think I was going to like the father. Sort of the father initially when I first read about him, was just something that was, you know, off-putting about him. And then gradually, you know, I came to see how he had, as Rosemary said, been somebody who really understood his son, and somebody who really loved his son. And in terms of Ray's mother, yeah, I was struck by how talented and determined she was, and how she, you know, also expressed her love to her son, and how her son really appreciated her. Then there were things like the forced move, or moves, and you know, I thought, yeah, that's just how the extension of the erosion of the treaties has been taking place. It's all done under the guise of so-called good intentions, but in fact, those intentions often have no goodness in them. It's purely done on the basis of these people are expendable because we can't make a profit from them, or we want their territory from them. And then I was really struck by what Ray had to say about social workers and the way that social workers are often being used and feeling themselves that they should be manipulators of the poor, of the marginalized. Their job is to enforce discipline of on these people, and it's the discipline of those in power who have, it's a totally anti-democratic control system that's designed to just marginalize the poor and keep them out of the way, and the attitude, these people, quote, quote, these people are problems and they need to know their place. And so I'm reading a series of books set in the 1500s in England. And one of the things that comes through there is just how the poor are to be exploited and suppressed. And so that really comes through very strongly in this book, and then at the same time, is the writer is just such a wonderful talent for showing us our common humanity, what are, the relation, the stories in terms of big brother leading little brother into all types of trouble, not big trouble, but little troubles. So it's a really beautiful book.
Well, I hope people would want to read it after hearing all of these voices already. Sarah, did you say it wins Stanley? Yeah, okay. Let's hear your point.
Yeah, I just am reminded why I love being part of book clubs. It's been a while, but I just feel like it gives me such like a broader view of what I've just read. So I appreciate everyone sharing. Yeah, I think the book had me thinking a lot about just like family dynamics. And I have an older brother, I have a younger brother too, but it just had me thinking about like the weirdness of spending so much time with someone that you like get to know just like their mind really intimately. And I just remember like spending so much time with my older brother and like even into our early 20s and just being like, oh man, he like would just talk about things in a certain way and like just like, I don't know, I'd half-heartedly sometimes engage. And it just kind of reminded me a little bit of that dynamic of like, you're just around this person so much that like you just start, I don't know, you learn their kind of ways of being really well. So it kind of made me think a little bit about just that dynamic. It's a very different kind of book than I would normally read. I like don't have a science brain at all. So I think sometimes I had to like go back and reread some of those conversations because I was just like, what did I just read? Like, I don't know what this word means. So kind of having to go back and kind of reread some parts was interesting for me. Yeah, and I think I was just really struck by like, I think he did a really amazing job of just painting a picture of emotions without saying necessarily what the emotions were. And I was just thinking back as somebody talked earlier about his dad passing away. And then I think there's a scene where he's at school and he just goes and stands in the corner and just cries. And like, what a powerful image of like a grieving young person who probably doesn't even have the words just yet to talk about it. So I thought he just did a beautiful job of just like painting dynamics and like relationships in like a way that was really nuanced. So I really appreciated it. And to be honest, I don't read a lot of books by men right now. And so this was probably the first book by a man that I read in a really long time. And so I really enjoyed it, and just was like, it just felt like something different that I hadn't read before. So yeah, I feel like there's more I could say, but I'm curious to hear what the other Sarah has to say.
Well, like everybody, I loved the book. Most of the I think kind of key points have been brought forward, but I think my perspective, two things I would share that haven't, or partly haven't, whatever. First of all, I have my son has he has schizoaffective disorder, and it was sitting with this book was, I think Shelley brought this up, that experience for Ray of having all this love and admiration, and also, you know, sometimes hatred and impatience and anger and love and admiration, and believing everything he says, and at the same time knowing that on some level it's also all wrong, but it's also all right, and that he sent him into outer space, and also that that was not at all possible, that he could have sent him into outer space. It's like that. And Shelley alluded to that, that sitting with somebody in that state is like that. It's all that. So that was super, it was a real experience sitting with that through the whole book. It was hard at times. Sorry, I gotta get a tissue. Michelle, where's that bag of tissues? At times it was hard, but it was also very inspiring for me, because I felt like it kind of gave permission to just love, and it's okay. Everything else is okay. Everything else is gonna be okay. Everything else was okay. And it's okay to just love. And Clifford will, you know, he'll bring himself where he needs to be, how he needs to be, and it's gonna be okay. And so anyway, for me, that was a super powerful book in that way. Just, it was an absolute love story. And I'm not saying I know for sure Clifford had this or that disorder, but all I'm saying is the experience of sitting in that space with Clifford through Ray's eyes was very similar to a lot of my experiences sitting with my son through my own eyes. So it was just an extremely powerful kind of treatise on love and how intense it can be. And the other thing I loved about it was just how poetic it was. There was so much poetry woven into his prose that I think that, combined with the part fiction, part nonfiction, it was very disorienting, but in an absolutely beautiful, breathtaking way. It's kind of like you never knew when he was going to have these incredible poetic paragraphs or pages, or even just sentences sometimes, that just absolutely knock you off your seat onto the floor and you're just gutted. And it was the same, like Rosemary alluded, sometimes I was reading and I was like, well, is this true? I'm a very literal reader. So I was like, did he actually see the moon? I don't know. Anyway, I absolutely love this book, and I will read it again and again and again. And I got it from the library, but I will absolutely buy a copy. And I gave it a 5-star review on Goodreads and wrote a nice long review of it. So thanks. Whoever picked this book out, I want to thank you. And that's it.
I had got that message of how like impactful this book was, and I want to say it was Rosemary. I want to say maybe it was Heather Walker. No, was it you, Sarah? Go ahead, Sarah.
It was me. I emailed you.
You emailed me this book.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, no, I guess your email, which I didn't know if I should share that part, but you know, it was like this book is so powerful, but I think this was like recommended 6, 9, maybe even a year ago, you know, like, let's do this book. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll order it and go ahead. And I looked, and this was the same author, Fire, Water, and that's a book we haven't done yet. So, you know, maybe that's a book that we could pick in the future. I don't know if anybody's read Fire, Water here. Mm-hmm. Everybody's shaking. But I mean, if this book is any indication, hey.
I actually immediately put Firewater on my wish list on Amazon after reading this book. I was like, I have to read more by this author. So I would love if we read.
That's awesome. Well, we'll have to put it on the list then. So I know Sarah, you were going to say more, and you were like, "Oh, I want to hear the other Sarah first." Did you want to chime in more? No? Okay. How does everybody feel about watching that video?
Can I just say one or two more things?
Heck yeah.
Like, yeah, yes, it was very poetic, and you know, and one just read through because it's like a story, yet he slipped in such key issues and things to think about and chew about. And so he talked about, in connection with, we see what we think we're seeing as opposed to what we're really seeing. He that all came up in a discussion of him saying that Ray was racist, right, in terms of how he regarded the Indigenous woman on the street, and that it's because those stereotypes even sit in the brains of Indigenous people, because that was Ray's right response. But I'm half Indian, I'm half Indigenous, and he talked about how racism is internalized. He talked about lateral violence. Those are big, big issues. And someone else alluded to this when they were talking about wealth, what is wealth, like at the beginning of the book in terms of his family. But then in the end, too, there was that whole discussion about what does it mean to be someone? You're going to be someone someday. So some people might think, oh, you're going to make a lot of money or you're going to be famous. And he's saying, no, it's about your spiritual development and your relationship with others. And, you know, I bought the stories. I bought him being up on the moon and the rest, because it's not that I think he physically went, but it alludes to, like, you know, they were taking peyote and all kinds of stuff. And that those hallucinogens, they do create a space where people do, I mean, I kind of believe in this stuff. They do travel. They're out there. They see all kinds of things. And maybe I sound a bit woo-woo when I say that, but if people want to read a totally nonfiction book, and I am not saying Clifford had a Neolithic mind, but there is an incredible book called The Neolithic Mind. And it's all about the symbols and things that were drawn on rocks and what they meant, and how those compare to people today who use hallucinogens and what they see, people who are almost dying, what they see, people who meditate really seriously, what they see. It's what you talked about, Michelle. It's what we don't know. But some people are, you know, travel there a bit.
So
sorry.
No, I need to validate everything you're saying. Like, I think this is the one space that what you're saying is completely acceptable. I think one of the things that really showed the intelligence of my people to me after all of the brainwashing that I had received from Canada, it was Turtle Island. And I was like, how did our people know that it looked like turtle? How did they know? And so the concept of astral travel, what you're talking about with people who legitimately meditate, even Gets Crazy Boy's book that we had read, like it's all interconnected in a way. So like this is the one safe place that is a wonderful conversation to expand on, because I think it is valid. And I think that when we're in ceremony, when we're doing sweats, we're in the mother's womb, and we see things we don't normally see as well. And these are my experiences. This isn't even something that I've heard about from other people. It's just you see these things that had no idea. And so, you know, there is a intelligence there that I can't encapsulate, and that's that last smudge of acknowledging you can't, there's something so much bigger than what I could possibly understand. And some people have figured out how to astral travel, you know, in different ways. And I totally respect what you're saying. So I just wanted to validate where you're going with that, I don't think you sound crazy at all.
I just wanted to also add, when you were doing your prayer, your acknowledgement of the unseen, I immediately thought of this book too, how there's a lot in there that relates to the unseen that you're speaking about. And I think that's really great that you acknowledge the unseen, because it's something we have to remember, that there's a lot out there that we don't know. And I love also that Harold talked about how returning to nature is healing. And that's super important for, especially these times.
Absolutely. Anybody else want to chime in? Or expand on an idea that we were just kind of discussing?
I just want to confirm that book title. Is it Inside the Neolithic Mind, Consciousness, Cosmos, and the Realm of the Gods?
Is it put out by Thames and Hudson, or Hudson and who's the publisher?
Hmm.
I think it's just called.
Oh, publisher. Yeah. Thames and Hudson.
Yeah, I think that's the one, called The Neolithic Mind. Yeah. And it looks at, cultures in Europe way back when, cultures all around the world. Yeah, it's fascinating. And as artists, I don't know if Kat, you think like this, but sometimes the best ideas for the work, who knows where they come from? It comes from somewhere outside the rational part of our brain. What do you think, Kat?
I agree, totally.
Okay. Thank you.
Since the pandemic started, I haven't been feeling that feeling too often. So I'm eager to sort of get back to that sort of state and get my creativity and get in touch with the muse out there again. Hopefully they come and visit me soon, because I need it.
When I think of things that are like something pops into my head, I always acknowledge that as my ancestors, right? That they're here with us when we smudge. We brought them all here. So even some of the conversations that they could be having could kind of transplant into our heads. We'd suddenly have a thought, an obscure thought. Well, to me, that's sometimes where it comes from, right? Is that bigger picture. And we all internalize that differently. And I'm not saying anybody else's ideas are wrong, but I just know, why did that pop in my head? And it's like, oh yeah, because I'm open to that now. It's been really humbling, because I was an atheist before I had walked down the red road. I was really just an atheist, and then too many coincidences started happening, and I bumped into ghosts, and I'm like, okay, well, there's something bigger than what I understand. And I've just always left it at that, like, it's bigger than what I understand. And when I lay tobacco and I put out a prayer, I do feel better, and weird things happen to fall in place. So I just go, okay, then that is what was meant to be. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of validate everything that you were going along the lines of as well there in a different way. Yeah. Does anybody want to go ahead, Maris?
Yeah, I think, did Clifford touch on that in the book too, of how like our cells are somehow connected? I don't understand it. Art's degree over here. But yeah,
the cells, cellular memory.
Yes.
And like our ancestors are literally part of us in our body cells. And so it makes sense why we could get information from that. Yeah. I totally remember that part. Yeah.
Yeah, it was super trippy, but also, for anybody who attends ceremony, like we see these things happen and we can't explain them. And that cellular memory, again, it goes back to like everything that Clifford said was, some of it you're like, is this total bull, but also entirely factual at the same time? Like, and it's that, the holding the two truths together. And I thought that was really fascinating. And we've seen ceremonies come back just through dreams. So that cellular memory, like there's something going on there there definitely is.
You know how we talk about intergenerational trauma? It's this intergenerational healing, I think, is the counterbalance to that conversation. And that's why we are open to getting it. And that's why, like, as much as we might lose a language or lose, you know, a ceremony, there's a piece of me that thinks, are we going to really lose it though? Because if we, like with my daughter, you know, just give her that generation, that space to heal, I don't know, just might come back and I can't explain it. And I just smile and nod and humbly remember I'm pretty tiny and turtles live longer than me. So. All right. So one of the things that I wanted to point out was, so Tracy Lindbergh, the author of Birdie, I don't remember if everybody was here when we did that book, or The Outside Circle from Patty Lubican Benson, who's now a senator. They actually did some really great reviews on the back of this. And I thought, it kind of like what you were saying, where you don't really like to read a lot of male authors. I'm kind of the same way. But I was kind of like, well, if these two said it's this good, it must be pretty good. So I was pretty excited about this book, not going to lie. And to hear everybody talk about it this way has been really good. I've actually found, because of the Langevin issue, I've been really too busy to read into it, but I haven't heard a single person say to me, once you start this book, you can't put it down. And I'm like, oh, I can't do it. I have a deadline. I can't do it. I have a deadline. So I have it in front of me and I keep reading what other people are saying about it. And it sounds so good. So I just wanted to thank you all for that. Did you want to watch that video, or what would you guys like to do?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
I'd really like to hear him.
Sure. All right. Well, I'll just do that share screen again. And I think I have to unplug my headphones in order for it to be heard. So hopefully you'll be able to hear it well. I never know if it's just my computer taking really long to load, or if it's legitimately not loading. Here we go. Okay, let's see. Oh, I see a bunch of pop-ups. So the pop-ups are probably stopping it from going faster. Let's see what we got here for volume. So it's at 8 seconds already, so I'm just going to rewind it. I can't hear it at all. So I don't know if these Bel Air insurance things are actually preventing it from loading properly. So here I got all excited that we would finally be able to watch a video, and now I can't even get it to work. Look at all these pop-ups. Why is this not loading, I wonder? Nobody else can hear it, I'm assuming?
No.
Boy, oh boy.
Sometimes, well, on other Zoom meets, sometimes we've closed our, like, shut off our video and it helped. I don't know if that's the case this time.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the problem, unfortunately. I think it would be somebody. Oh, did you guys see these comments? I'm the person who doesn't return the books. Please never lend me a book. I definitely picked up on the mental health issues with his brother. That's so funny. Sorry I missed those comments, folks. Well, let's go back and see why this isn't working. Maybe there's a different one we can see. It's supposed to be a video. Why isn't this just playing? CBC player.
Is Sheila Rogers on TV or the radio? On radio. Maybe it's an
CBC.
audio. I don't know.
Yeah.
someone you talk with, about everything.
Here we go. I don't know why it loaded.
Imagine a big brother, someone you talk with, about everything. But this brother also has big ideas about space, time, and the universe, and your place in it. He shapes the very person you become. And then that brother is killed in an accident. Harold R. Johnson tells the story of his beloved late big brother in his latest book, Clifford. It's a loving portrait, at times emotional and intellectual. It captures the bitter and the sweet. It mixes fiction, science fiction, and fact. Clifford is Harold Johnson's 8th book. His last book was Firewater, How Alcohol is Killing My People and Yours. And that was shortlisted for a 2016 Governor General's Literary Award for Nonfiction. We spoke about it on the next chapter. So I'm very happy to welcome back Harold R. Johnson, who joins me now from Saskatoon. Hi.
Hello, Sheila. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. If you keep writing books, I get to talk to you. So thank you.
Oh, I've got a lot in the queue.
Oh, good. That's great. Well, I want to talk to you about Clifford. Your story opens with an image of an old chair, and it only has 3 legs. The 4th one's broken off, but the chair stands, and you say it defies logic and defies gravity. And it's one of the few objects left in an abandoned house, which was once your home for your family of 9. And the chair sparks memories, a lot of memories of a lifetime lived. What did that chair mean to you? What did it symbolize?
That chair is something that I created. It was to hold the story together. My mother, my father, and Clifford. And the broken leg was what we'd had.
What you lost?
What we lost.
How did you lose it?
I had 2 childhoods. My first childhood was when my father was alive. It was beautiful. We were wealthy. We had food. We had a home. We had gardens. We set a fish net. We got fish. Go hunting and get meat. My dad was a trapper and a commercial fisherman. I can remember pelts hanging in the house. Lots of them. And it was a peaceful place. Lots of kids to play with. Community that looked after me. And then my father died. And my mother took over trapping and fishing. And she did so good at it that she embarrassed the men. And they wanted to take her trap line away from her, and they conspired to do that. This is 1966-67. Muskrats were selling for between $5 and $8 a piece. She was getting 100 a day. So imagine $500 a day.
A day? Wow.
A day.
That's amazing.
And then she goes to Larange, to the nearest government office, because there's a government program that'll supply grants for windows and doors. And our home needs new windows and doors. As she's applying for the grant, she has to explain to them where she makes her money and how much she makes. And as she's explaining that, it comes out that she's taking us out of school in the spring to go up the trap line with her. And then we miss about a month of school. An Aboriginal woman, 6 children still at home. There's a grade 1 education. She only spent 1 year in residential school. And they tell her, you have to quit trapping, move to Larange, and go on welfare, or we're going to take your children away from you.
There's no choice.
No. So we went from Malnosa, what I, in my childhood, thought of as extreme wealth. And we moved to Larange on welfare, and I found out what poverty meant. And I discovered racism. All of a sudden, I was a dirty Indian.
You talked about 2 legs of the chair, Harold, and the 3rd leg is Clifford. And you talk about choosing to remember the good times Tell me about Clifford's influence on the man that you grew into.
He was here when I got here on this planet. He was 6 years older than me. And so I experienced him looking up. He was here waiting for me. He went to school before I did. And he'd come back from school with all of the things that they taught him, and he'd teach it to me. He impacted me intellectually. Challenge everything. Don't believe what you're told. He played tricks on me to teach me that.
What kind of tricks? He made bets with you, right?
Yeah, I could barely count. And we'd be washing dishes. He always washed and I always wiped. And he'd bet me how many forks and knives and spoons there were going to be. And of course, he probably counted the people who had supper and figured it out. And I'd lose the bet, and then I'd owe him $1,000. I'm 6 years old, and I said, well, I can't pay $1,000. He said, that's okay. I'll collect it from you when you're old. So, by the time we were in our 20s, I'd owed him millions of dollars.
He sounds like an H.G. Wells of the bush. Making flying machines, doing all sorts of scientific experiments, rockets.
Yeah, he built an airplane out of wire and plastic. And I think he stole Mom's coat hangers for the wire. And I'm pretty sure he used the polyethylene that we used over the windows in the winter to keep the drafts out for the body. And he builds this airplane, and it has an open cockpit in it. And he tells me that he's designed this airplane for my weight, and that he wants me to get into it, and he's going to put it up on the roof of the house. And he has a long rope, and he's going to pull on the rope, and the airplane's going to fly up off the roof of the house, and I'll get to fly in an airplane. And I said, no way. Not getting in that thing. And he says, I'll prove it to you. And he got a rock. And he said, now look at this rock. This rock is the same weight as you are. And he put the rock in the airplane. And he pulled the airplane off the roof of the house with his rope, and he's running across the yard. And the airplane comes off the roof, and it flies. It actually flies. It comes up, and I'm standing there watching and thinking, man, I missed out. I could be up there flying. And the plane turned into an arc, and the arc turned into a dive, and the plane crashed in the front yard. And all Clifford said was, see, all it needed was a pilot.
It sounds like you had a lot of laughs, but later on in the story, he challenges you on your racism, and you kind of say to him, what? Me?
Yeah.
What happened there?
We'd gone for lunch. On the way there, we met an Aboriginal woman, and she was asking for money, and I gave her some. During lunch, he proved to me that I was a racist. He explained how story impacted me, and the story that I was telling myself about lazy, dirty, drunken Indian. The story that I'd been told was quite common at the time. He explained how that impacted me, and that it even impacted my eyes. And my eyes saw a dirty drunk where there wasn't one. Dismissed them when I should have been paying closer attention. Treated her like a human being with a bit more respect than I did. I just gave her a handful of change and walked away.
To have this kind of guide in your life, I can't imagine what it was like for you to learn that he had died. What happened to Clifford?
Clifford had gone through a long period of depression. His marriage had broken down. He's a single father of 3 children. He didn't have work, and he didn't seem interested in work. And he's got 7 brothers who beat up on him because of it. We're always calling him down. we made him know what we felt. And then he got a job. He's been a radio and television technician, and there's still a lot of work for them in Northern Saskatchewan. But he finally got a job. CBC Radio was opening up radio stations in small communities across Northern Saskatchewan. He was going to be looking after all of the equipment, but he had to go to school for 9 months at Yorkton. And so he packed everything he owned into his truck and his 3 boys, and he was heading to Yorkton. And sometime during the night, just north of Prince Albert on the S curves, a drunk came across the road and hit him. He was probably killed instantly. His oldest son was put into a hospital for a couple of weeks and was kept in an induced coma. His 2 younger sons weren't physically hurt.
You got a call from the RCMP, and they told you that someone in your family had been killed. What went through your mind?
Who? It was a beautiful September 2nd morning. I was working night shift, and me and a buddy liked to stay up later so that we slept closer to when we had to go back to work at 7 o'clock in the evening. And we were in my room playing backgammon, drinking a bit of homemade wine. And there was a knock on the door. The rec director was sent up to get me. And I go down and I'm told we got a call from the RCMP. So I phoned back and we couldn't get through on the phone in the office at the camp. So we drove over to the mine office. I phoned the RCMP again. And they said someone in your family's died. I'm not 100% sure who it is. And I'm not going to say until I am 100% sure. Say where you are and I'll phone you back. And it was 2 hours. And during those 2 hours, I negotiated with God. In the end, I gave everybody up. All my brothers, my parents, my wife, in exchange for my children. And then I got the call from the RCMP and told her my brother.
So hard.
Yeah, it's been over 30 years and it still hurts.
There was such a bond between you, and as you describe in the book, there was a heart bond. There was a brain-mind meld. He tried to meld your brain to his anyway. No wonder, of course it's a deep loss. Why did you want to write Clifford's story now? He died in 1985.
1985.
So why now, so many years after his death?
Maybe because I could write it now with that much distance, that much time. I wanted to honor him, and writing pure biography wasn't going to do it. This is a guy who read science fiction. He loved fantasy. He always had his nose in a book. So to write him as pure nonfiction wasn't going to work. He was bigger than that. He's bigger than real life. So to honor him, I wrote him as fiction.
Fiction and science fiction.
And fantasy.
And metaphysics.
Yes.
It's an amazing way to tell a story. There's an element in the book. There's a story. I don't want to give it away in this interview because I think it is for the book, for the reader. But early in your life, while Clifford was still alive, you betrayed him. And you wonder, how do I make it right? Was writing his story this way helping to make it right?
Maybe. I'd written it without that section in it, and had a complete novel that wasn't included. And it didn't feel right. It didn't feel complete. It didn't feel honest. was struggling.
It's a full story.
It feels complete.
Also dedicate the book to Clifford's three sons in hopes of honoring their father. What did you want them to understand about their dad?
I want them to see him the way I saw him. I'm having a gathering at my cabin, and we're going to hold a memorial for Clifford. And his boys will be there, his grandchildren, and hopefully several of my family will be there. And we'll have a feast. That man could eat, so the offering plate's going to have to be huge. And we'll remember him. And we'll wrap his sons
In blankets.
Yeah. But that should have been done a long time ago. But we'll finish it.
This book feels like a wrapping.
Yeah.
If Clifford could read the story, what do you think he would think?
He'd laugh at the funny part. We'd have a really good conversation about the science. And he'd either tell me I was full of shit, or he'd be nominating me for a Nobel Prize.
It sounds like the Clifford you've given us in your book.
Yeah.
Harold, there's so much wisdom and so much story in this story. Thank you so much.
And thank you for having me on, Sheila. It's always a pleasure.
That's Harold R. Johnson, and he is the author of Clifford. He joined me from Saskatoon.
Well, he broke our rule about no swearing.
Mhm.
I was like, they actually beeped him out.
Oh, did we lose someone? Who did we lose? Let me bring up our where is the chat here? Yeah, I was just going to invite everyone to go around and kind of respond to what you heard, or maybe if it triggered something from the book that you had read. So we'll start with Maris and just ask your opinion of what you just heard, and any other ideas or thoughts you had about the book.
I'd be really interested to meet this author and talk to him one-on-one. Saskatchewan's not that far, guys. I think we should eventually do a road trip. I'm just really looking forward to exploring more pieces from him, because I really enjoyed reading this book, and I want to see the other avenues that he's taken, because I know this one seems a little bit different from the other books that he's written, and he has about 5 different works, and this one kind of stood out on its own. So I'd be interested to explore the different facets of his brain and where he goes with his works. Yeah.
Awesome. Kat, do you want to go next?
They talked about a couple of things that actually happened in Harold and Clifford's life. So it makes me wonder what else in the book was real and what was not real. as other people have said today, you have to wonder, did it really happen like that? And I just wanted to, after I finished the book, I wanted to really research his family and see if all these things actually did happen. But of course, that's part of being the audience, is you have to decide for yourself what's real and what's not, and what touches you the most.
Yeah, no kidding. Great points. Shelley.
I really I liked how he the way he talks, and like I really find he's very captivating, and he makes it like he draws you in, and I like that he's like, I'm not gonna spoil it, but he said that the part where he that he had to put that in because it wouldn't feel real if he didn't put that in. I thought that was really authentic. Yeah.
Awesome. Crystal.
Yeah, I really enjoyed hearing his voice and hearing him kind of tell these anecdotes that are in the story, like with the airplane and then the punchline with his brother saying, "Oh, you just need a pilot," or whatever. Yeah. And yeah, and really kind of he highlighted like the summary of it too, which like the highlight the things that are the most important for him. And there was one other thing I was thinking in terms of like what's true or not. Like for me, I just feel the meaning is beyond like what's true or not true. Like it's the bigger takeaway of like what's the feeling or the message of what's being conveyed, and that's for me the takeaway. So I'm only, like I said, I'm halfway through, so I'm excited to keep reading.
Right on. Dawn and Rosemary.
Well, I couldn't hear. The sound was soft, and then also I'm wearing hearing aids, and so it was just, I just couldn't. The sound was just breaking up for me. So I'll just go later, maybe tomorrow, and go and listen to that interview. So
you know what? I just put the link in the comments for that reason. If it's easy for you to get now, I just put the link there in that hopes that you can hear it. So I apologize for that, Dawn.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, I had trouble hearing the end of it, kind of. But I read the little blurb about him. And I mean, he was in the Navy, then he did all those, hard working class jobs, mining, etc. And then it said he went to Harvard Law School. And so I'm wondering, so what was the impetus for doing that? What was that experience like? And has he ever practiced law? And how did he get into write? I mean, we know he was always writing, interested in writing words, but now he's produced all these books. So I'm just interested in that trajectory.
What a great point. Sarah Winstanley. Awesome.
Yeah, it was really interesting to hear him kind of tell some of the stories from the book, like the one about the plane. I thought that was really, like, it's just kind of funny in the book, and then just to be like, something that looks obviously like a disaster, and he's like, no, like it could have been okay if we just had this. So I thought that was really interesting, but it also made me think of like, I'd be really interested to hear how Clifford's sons read the book and like their kind of take on the book, because it just makes me think like we only really know what we know of a person from like our own perspective. So it just kind of made me think like, yeah, I was thinking about being at my brother's wedding and kind of hearing all these people talk about him that I didn't know, and then like tell these stories, and I was just like, oh my God, like it just helped me flesh out what I knew of him. So anyway, it just started getting me to reflect on like how I can say I really know someone. But yeah, I'd be interested to hear from his sons, and also just that horrible 2 hours driving home, not knowing who in your family had died. Like, I was just like, is that best practice for like an emergency situation to like give that much information, but not all the information? Anyway, it just seemed like such a horrible time that's probably just burned on like his heart for the rest of his life kind of thing. So in addition to losing his brother. So yeah, anyway, those are some of my reflections.
No, that's such a great point. When I heard him say that, I was like, holy, I can't, like he said that he made peace with God at that time. I'm like, that sounds like a whole book of 2 hours being alone with your thoughts, running through all of your family members. And it reminded me, my husband, when his father passed away, we kind of knew. We knew that because the RCMP called us to Red Deer. So we had to drive over to Red Deer. They wouldn't tell us on the phone. And I could not imagine one tiny bit knowing you had to wait there for 2 hours. But being spoken to that way, like with all the families of missing and murdered Indigenous women that I have come across, or having an Indigenous mother lose a son, I see that pattern over and over where the police are not the same as they are to people they perceive to be white. And it's just a running theme through my entire life. So when he talked about, you know, it's so funny when natives don't see themselves as natives. Or one of my favorite things that I hear natives say is, "Oh, I'm a white passing native," and I just roll my eyes and I'm like, I promise you at the hospital, they will apprehend your children. I promise you, if you know a cop knows you're native, they will not treat you well. Like I can just label it over and over again. So like there's a piece of me that wonders like, does he see that maybe because he was an Indian, that that's why he had to wait the 2 hours that maybe other people didn't. And I'd love to be wrong on that. Like, so just to put that out there. So thank you for sharing that, Sarah. Sarah Flynn.
I don't have much to add. I really enjoyed it, and his vibe is exactly how I thought it would be from reading the book. So it was really nice. I agree with Morris that we definitely need to take a road trip and pick him up and take him out for pizza.
Well, and you know, maybe it's one of those things that if we just asked him to come to our book club, he would.
I guess a Zoom appearance is a lot easier than 7, 8, 10 people driving out there.
Yeah, no kidding. Holy.
One.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just going to bring back the Calgary Library link. I don't know if we all got to kind of hear that, and I'm looking. I want to share screen. Okay, I'm gonna share screen. Share. Okay, so this was what we just watched. I'm just gonna close that. Here it is. So I actually talked to the library. I thought maybe she would just, you know, it would go to voicemail, but it didn't. So the Calgary Library now has our book club up there. Under their programs, the Indigenous Book Discussion Group, that's how they labeled it. And so the idea is that you register. So we have cut down the time to 90 minutes instead of the full 2 hours. And we are changing the date. So March 15th, that sounds like the, you know, maybe 3 weeks, but maybe it's just the two. But we're switching back to the second Monday of each month, sorry, not the third one, because I've just found as soon as that transition happened, it felt like we were always on a holiday, whether it was May long weekend, Family Day, September long, you know, like there's always something it felt like that we were missing. So I actually kind of like the idea of it going back to the second Monday. So apparently they only do it 2 sessions at a time, like 2 months in advance. So they say that there's only 4 or 9 spaces available, but they said, of course, they would make accommodations for our group club like their previous members. So if any of you are having problems with registering for this, please let me know. So when I get the Zoom, geez, I wonder if I will get the Zoom that is the shareable one. I'm assuming so. So they haven't really talked to me what this is going to look like. I'm just assuming that if you all register through the library, that you will get the Zoom link emailed to you. So we'll see how that works come March 15th.
Michelle,
yeah,
I'm sorry. So we Google Calgary Public Library, and then what are we looking for? Like, what's the path to get us to the registration form?
Yeah, so I just brought it up and I put the link in the comments. So this is the link that I gave you, and I'll probably email you it.
Thank you.
So that way it just makes, and along with the CBC thing that we have there. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
of course. Yeah, because I wasn't sure like how that was even going, and here they already had it up and online and running down on space. So this is what it looks like. I don't know if you can see it, but it's like where, wins, class status. I don't know why does it not say where the book is, because I know I gave them the books in advance, but I just may not see it. Well, maybe if I click register, it'll tell me. So I'm clicking the register. Oh yeah, so once you click the register, it tells you the book. And so then it has the TRC. So for those who are new to our book club, basically we do a book and then we do a section of the TRC. And when we get to the 94 calls to action, we'll probably start doing sections of the National Inquiry. So that's where we're at. So this is how you have to register. So we have the TRC one, and I want to say it's Mama's Sketch. I don't know how you say that one. I'll just click on it to make sure that we get the other one here properly done. And then of course the next one would be the TRC. So I know I gave them a full list. But I
Is
don't
there a
think
way to get this Zoom link directly through you if we don't have a library card?
well, the hope we want to encourage everyone to get the library card. That's first
It's
and
free.
foremost. Yeah. And because like this book club that we had today, like I got this book from the library. Yeah, life has changed for me dramatically, so I can't buy the books I want, that's for sure. So yeah, Mama Sketch by Daryl McLeod is the April book, and then May will be the next TRC section. Although that's not up to register for yet. So yeah, hopefully they'll be able to start collecting data on that as well. So I wanted to make sure you were all aware of it. I will send you a follow-up email, but that said, I don't know if I have everybody's email. If you're comfortable, so who would I not know have? Maybe Maris, might not have yours. Jeremy's I have, Kat, Shelly. Crystal, I'm sure I have your email. We just chatted. Sarah Winstanley, we just chatted. Sarah Flynn, we just chatted. So I don't think I'm missing anybody's email here. Maybe Maris. I would like to just make a quick, oh, there it is. Thank you. Okay, so I will send everybody a list of the CBC player that we just listened to. Oh, and something else I wanted to bring up to you. I got a private message from Sandra Crazy Bull, and I think she's changing her name to Many Feathers, so I apologize if I got that wrong, being how we're being recorded. And she was excited to tell me about this new graduates program in education for the University of Calgary. So for those who can see it, it's the Nitsitapian Real People Way of Life. And this program is a degree, and it has 4 courses, 12 units offered as a part of a interdisciplinary Master of Education program centered in Niitsitapi ways of knowing and being. 4-course topic area that includes, I had a quick look through it and it was pretty awesome. So term 1 is language. Through the summer, term 2 through the fall is Blackfoot history and politics. And then in the fall is Blackfoot language point 2. And then in the winter is art and storytelling, all Blackfoot related. So anyway, she was really encouraging me for that. And she said to share it with anybody who you might know. So I'll probably send you that link as well for you to share it with people. Go from there. So those are some of the things that I was thinking about sharing with you before we ended today. Any questions about us transitioning to the Calgary Public Library or back to Calgary Public Library?
Since I'm in Cochrane, I'm gonna register under my sister until I move into Calgary.
I'm sure they give you a card. I don't know though.
No, it's like $350 or something.
Oh, gross. Because I thought there was like an Alberta wide like card you could get.
I think there is, but I'm moving in May, so I'll just register under her.
Okay, sorry about that, Shelley, and I appreciate you telling me that barrier. Well, but it's kind of important because like, so our friend Vanessa, normally she's teaching on Mondays now, like in the new term for her. So I don't know if she could join us even if it is the second Monday as opposed to the third Monday, but she's also out in Cochrane, right? Yeah. And so that's not a very cool barrier, I think. So I don't really know the rules around that.
I think you can, but since I'm going to be moving anyways.
Yeah, it's fair. I'm glad, like, you have a solution is kind of my point, and it's back to that I'll just send people Zoom links if I can then, because I'm a sneaker that way. So yeah,
Shelley,
those
Michelle should know what name you're going to register under.
Probably Amanda Bellamy.
gosh, why do I feel like I know Amanda Bellamy?
No,
No, hey?
she's not as active as I am.
Interesting. I went to Gunnery with a Bellamy. I wonder whatever happened to him. But we're from all across Canada, so I don't even think you guys would be related by any stretch. So anyway. So I guess last round of thoughts. Maybe we'll go. Let me have a quick look at the list here. So we'll start with Maris. So I guess because we're getting closer, we're 20 minutes before we have to end. Any lasting thoughts or book recommendations, and thoughts on transitioning to the library. And I think that's about it. Or maybe some things you're looking forward to in the anything you'd like, basically.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes next. I think it's awesome that you've kind of included the TRC intermittently throughout, because I think that's really important information to cover. I'm actually really happy to see so many settler Canadians in this space, because I find often, especially, in the Indigenous community in Calgary, often we'll come across Indigenous books or Indigenous films and everyone's talking about it. But then we're like, there's not so many settler Canadians that know about this. And it just seems to be this pattern of like, there's really great Indigenous content that's only being consumed by Indigenous people, which is great, but it's settler Canadians who really need to hear these stories. So I really appreciate seeing that today. It was kind of unexpected and a really pleasant surprise. So yeah, I'm excited to continue and have more conversations with you guys. Thank you so much for having me. I'm actually going to log off just because I've got dinner on the go at the same time. Yeah, but it was really nice to meet you all. Thank you so much for having me.
Honored. Thank you, Maris. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Nice to
Good night,
meet you
everyone.
too.
Nice
See
to
you
meet
again. Get a Matson.
Get a Matson.
Awesome. Kat.
I am next. I hope this thing with the library works. I'm a little concerned about if none of us are able to register. I mean, through the library, I hope you are able to shoot us the link so we can continue, because sometimes, yeah, people sign up for things and then they don't join, and it wrecks it for the rest of us who are dedicated. So yeah, I know you'll take good care of us and keep us in mind for that. I also want to say happy Louis Riel Day to everyone who's not in Manitoba. Maybe it should be Louis Riel Day all across Canada. And I also am going to plug Settlers Book Club. This is our next book, which we're reading for next Monday, Pouring Down Rain, Cheryl Fogo. And of course, you're welcome to join as you are to Chapters and Chat. If you haven't read the book, still join for the discussion. I'm gonna have some video of Cheryl speaking and stuff. So yeah, that'll be great. And I just hope everyone has a really great month and stay healthy and take good care of yourselves.
Awesome. Kat, before you mute yourself, I was wondering, is the, well, look at Sarah's pup. Hi, Pupper. Hi. I was wondering if your Settler Book Club is going to transfer back to the library, and if you're going through this at all.
I haven't actually approached them because I'm not an official book club like Chapters and Chat is. I never got hooked up that way. I never asked them to create a book club or book bags for Settlers Book Club. Partly, I think, because I started at the Central Library and there's a very limited space. So kind of did it by word of mouth. But Heather suggested that maybe I try and look into getting a book club, book bag thing started. So I'll see how it goes with you, and think about the library afterwards.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I mean, maybe we can see how this works for us. Like, it was actually really important for me to grab everybody's emails today for this reason, to make sure we don't lose someone. And you know what? I'm just going to write Heather Walker before I forget, because Heather Walker is Heather Walker and Vanessa. I mean,
And
I don't think, sorry?
Roberta Reese, do you need her email?
Roberta Reese? Yeah, I would definitely need that
Okay,
email.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you. And anybody else am I missing off that's kind of part of our club that y'all miss? Okay, I'll put those names for now.
There was a young man who joined us.
Ben.
I miss Ben. And then there was some guy from the Faculty of Education.
Gavin. Yeah. He was with Settlers Book Club for a while, and then he sort of dropped out in December. So yeah, hopefully he'll come back too.
Yeah, you know what? I can just quickly kind of go through my emails and see if I have theirs as well, because, you know, I'd rather put it out there. So if you can send me Roberta's, although I might have it, but I don't know. I just don't want to forget anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And then make sure that we, you know, see how it goes. And then maybe Kat, if you're interested, because I'm sure what's happening at the library is that they're like, okay, so we have a pandemic. We're going to work with the system. They gave me the choice to work with Zoom, which I was pretty shocked about. So I don't know if they don't let me record it. We may only have 2 sessions with them. I don't know. Because I just think it's important for other people who are interested in these discussions to have that conversation, right? So, okay. So thanks folks for that. But we'll finish our circle here. I'm just skimming to make sure I don't get out of the order too much. So Maris, Kat, Shelley.
So I am an avid reader, and I do read a lot of nonfiction. So the 2 books that I've just finished, I think, as being white women settlers, are really good to read. It's called Hood Feminism. I'll write this in the notes. Hood Feminism: Notes from the Women that a Movement Forgot, and White Tears, Brown Scars: How White Feminism Betrays Women of Color. And they're really good. And
They
it
sound
talks
great.
Yeah. I'll write them down.
That would be great. And whether it's Kat or me, hopefully we can get that in there.
Yeah. I thought they're really good. Because because white women need to own their place in colonialism, and me too. I'm just I think that they're really good books to start doing that.
No, I appreciate that. Shelley, are you connected with Kat? Are you going to Kat's book club? Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. And I only ask because like Kat's been working on books that I want to be at. And of course, then something happens and I can't come and I want to be there. And those are really good book suggestions. So thank you for that. So maybe I'll talk to Kat. Which ones do you want to do? Which ones should I do? We'll just make sure we get them right. Yeah, so thank you for that, Shelley. And sorry, did I cut you off at all?
Oh no, I just thought they were really good. It's there's another one, but I think it's more disability related. It's really it's called Beyond Survival: Strategies and Stories from the Transformative Justice Movement.
I don't know if it's out of like.
I think
if you want to add it, I would appreciate it, and I'll tell you why. We just had an experience this weekend. Marilyn Northpagan launched her ward run, and one of her volunteers was wheelchair bound, and my husband and I, volunteered to pick him up, and he was really great. He's just like, whatever, I can get a ride home, and like no biggie whatsoever. But between him and Kent Hare and a few friends in my life, I know that intersection of ableism is something I definitely want to address, because like I can tell you at least 3 stories that are in the news of, Indigenous people in wheelchairs that are homeless with like a broken wheel, or staying in a bus shelter because other shelters being offered are not safe. And I just think that that intersection of disability with, racism is a really, is a blind spot for me, one, but two, that bigger picture that, disability in general, we want to be advocates. And I was learning from my friend, I won't say his name because I don't have his permission, but he was working with Cam Stewart at the Human Rights about disability rights right now, and he's on a committee, and they were talking about transitioning and what are actual, medical exemptions for masks. And I'm thinking, if the disability network still really hasn't ironed out this whole, wearing a mask or not wearing a mask, then that just confirmed to me how many ableist folks who are really into conspiracies and against wearing masks, like how many of them are really, throwing out a narrative at the expense of folks with actual disabilities. So, if you throw it in there, we'll have a look at it, because I think it's a really important discussion for us to be including. A friend of mine from Edmonton who has, like she says that she has autism, and the way she writes is so incredible. And I think that again, that's another, ableist space that I don't necessarily include properly. So, we have lots to unpack in the disability, intersection of what we're trying to talk about. So I really appreciate that, Shelley.
And the first line is afraid to call 911, but not sure what to do instead.
Yeah, it sounds like what we experience as the Indigenous community, just in a different way. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just typing it. Okay, I'm done.
Hey, thanks, Shelley. I appreciate it. Crystal.
Well, I really enjoyed our talk, and lately I've been really fortunate to have different Indigenous experiences. At my Alberta teachers had Dr. Patricia Makokis talk to us, and she expressed, like she said, we have to admit this is genocide. And I was so like, oh my gosh, this conversation is coming into the mainstream. It's like endorsed, it's being endorsed. And all these teachers from across Alberta are going to hear this message from this amazing person who has the credibility and the experience and does it in a, oh wow, an act of genocide. Yeah. So anyway, so that was awesome. And then I was able to attend a session with Chantal Chagnon at my teachers convention, where she taught us about different medicines and the medicine circle, and just the way that she expressed how of like, whatever you're taking in, what stays with you, that's what you're meant to learn. And so then I felt like just released from this, like, teacher thing of like, you have to take notes and like remember certain things. It's like, it's bigger than that. It's what are you connecting with and what can you take away? So, yeah. And then this book club. So I just feel like it's really good connections. Thank you.
That's awesome. Glad to hear it. And speaking of Chantal, she just did the Valentine's Day March.
Yes.
So hats off to her for that, for the work.
Yeah, Kat and I were there, and I just saw like that she single-handedly like really carried a lot. I mean, she had support and everything too, but yeah, and she took care of us. She said, okay, we're gonna go home now because it's really cold. So felt very safe and taken care of too at the same time, right? Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Glad to hear that. I thought it was really hard that we had the two events at the same time this year, but it's hard because the church shut us down for the walk, and it's not the church's fault. I should kind of reframe that and say the pandemic and the restrictions from the pandemic kind of created this issue. So the time change sucked that we had the two events at the same time, but I'm really glad that you attended. Thank you both for being there. I so appreciate it. I know it was so cold too, and I know a lot of people who would normally want to go couldn't go. So this pandemic and the cold weather sucks. Yeah, I see you nodding. Rosemary and Dawn.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Michelle, and thank you all the people in the circle. It's been a really great evening of discussion, and I've learned a lot. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you again to you, Michelle, and to everyone for having this. The issue of intersectionality seems to have come up a lot, within We're Together Ending Poverty. That's something we're taking very seriously. One of our members did some research trying to build an intersectional picture of poverty in Calgary, and then we tried to create a graphic to capture that, and we're incorporating it in our workshops on basic income. And we saw some of the feedback from the workshop we did up at the university, and that people really appreciated that and wanted to learn more about it. And then Saturday, Don and I participated in an NDP Black History Month event with David Shepherd, a young woman named Taylor who's with Rural Albertans Against Racism, the only Black law professor at U of A, and then a young woman who's both Muslim and Black. And again, the issue keeps coming up over and over. And David Shepherd said something very interesting. He was saying, you know, regardless of the issue or the policy, it's like you need to take it apart and find out whose needs are being met and whose aren't, and get out there and talk to people so that whatever the policy is, it truly incorporates those intersections and diversity of needs. Yeah. So it's good.
I'm glad we're all talking about this, and you're talking about Taylor. Her name is Taylor McNally, and I really encourage people to follow her. Next Saturday, she's going to have a big rally, counter rally, actually, at the legislature. And she's been trying to rally the troops for that because there's going to be a big, I call them Nazi marches, but I can't remember what they think they stand for, but they're Nazis. So she's trying to counter that. So I think she's really brave because a few of her other protests have really garnered some very interesting results. And you know, I would just remember seeing Jason Devine and Bonnie Devine being really the, you know, folks fighting Nazis, and it's just constantly being evolving recently. You know, it was more the LGBTQ2 plus community that were countering like us with voices, and that the Sons of Odin and such. And but yet it took a while for the general public to figure out these were all Nazis, and I don't understand why. So anyway, Sarah Winstanley.
Yeah, I actually was at the march yesterday, and I met Taylor McNally. I like follow them on Instagram. So it's like a weird world where I'm like, oh, I follow you on Instagram, and now here you are in front of me. So yeah, I just like, I'm so constantly, I don't even know the word, like just in awe of all the amazing Indigenous women who are like organizing in this city. So including you, Michelle. So thank you so much for creating this space. And yeah, I just feel again like just hearing from all of you has really like fleshed out my understanding of the book, and I'm really excited to continue on and keep learning with all of you. And I wanted to say I read a book called Johnny Appleseed by Joshua Whitehead, and I was kind of reading it at the same time as I was reading this book, and yeah, it was just like two completely different stories, but yeah, it was just like really interesting to kind of be reading them at the same time. So yeah, so I recommend that. Yeah, just very different story.
Super cool. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, Sarah Flynn.
Well, the benefit of going last is that I don't have much to add, but just all the same greetings. Thank you all so much. As always, great experience. And see you at the library or on the library Zoom.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, thank you all for coming. So appreciate every single one of you and every minute that you come to these and, sharing your thoughts of the book. It's just been really wonderful. And I just get really inspired. I hope that once we upload this onto YouTube, that other people who watch this get inspired to read it as well. So yeah. All right, folks. I will stay online here for a bit just because I want to make sure I copy and paste all of the comments and such. So with that, I say thank you for coming, and you're welcome to leave, but you're welcome to stay behind and chit chat if you want to. Okay, bye, Kat.
Thank you, Michelle. Bye-bye.
See you.
Okay, bye, Dawn. Bye, Rosemary. Bye,
Bye-bye.
everybody.
Thank
See
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Michelle, if you want to borrow that book, I can lend it to you because I don't. It's and then she writes another book. She's Leah Lack. Oh, I'm horrible at pronouncing names. Leah Lack. She's an autistic individual who's also BIPOC,
Okay.
and she writes this. It's called It's called Care Work, and she talks about disability justice. Like this one's more stories, and it talks about instead of calling the cops, they do community action, and they talk about like working within the community instead of calling the police.
Oh, I love that idea. And the
Yeah.
reason for that is like 211 is beyond needed, but just the resources for each other to understand, our needs that we need at the time. One of my favorite parts about hearing you all talk about this book was understanding and seeing manic behavior, but not judging it in a negative way, just riding it, and I really enjoyed hearing everyone talk about this. So yeah, if you want to throw the book into the comments, I hate to say it, I I would be one of those people that would steal your book forever. But if you give me the recommendation, we might get the book club, like the library, to put together a book bag for us type thing,
Yeah.
and then us be able to read it together. So
Okay.
yeah, just throw it in there, and then I'll
Yeah,
have a
it's in
look
there.
at them. Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I sat with my brother because he's bipolar. I sat with him for about 5 hours before he was medicated, and he was just completely manic. And I told him because he got stopped by the cops and he was speeding and he came at the cops, but
Mm.
he was walking and he's showing that he doesn't have a gun. I'm like, you are lucky you are a white male.
Yeah,
I said, you are lucky.
yeah, I know.
So I said, if you were a black man, you would have been shot.
Likely, and I hate that, and
Yeah,
I
I
hate.
do.
Well, and that said, like those who are homeless, sex workers, LGBTQ2 plus, BIMPOC, like they're all targeted because they know they're vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
by the police. And like, I don't know if you've seen that video of that white woman who was being bullied by her landlord and then the Hamilton police. But like, if she didn't know her rights and know when to shut the door, man, they would have kicked the crap out of her.
Yeah.
Like, it's so funny because people are like, oh, those guys should lose their job. I'm like, that's every cop. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't see that as every cop, then you are the privileged folks that they show their pretty nice faces to, whereas the rest of us get that cop. That's the cop I get to see most of the time, right?
And I'm in the disability employee resource group at with the GOA, and one of them, she's a forestry officer, and she's trying to teach other justice oriented people about ADHD and autism, how their body language is not defensive because people they perceive autism as like, look at my eyes. Well, I won't really look at your eyes. So it's she's trying to teach that in law enforcement, that you got to understand autistic people don't, of any color,
Yeah.
will act a certain way.
Yeah. I am I'm sure you've seen those signs that are in front of people's houses saying, "Hi, I have autism. Please don't kill me, cops," or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And it's just like, we shouldn't have to have signs like that, but
Mm.
that's just a reality of our bully mentality, that we've just armed this like fascist, industrial military police forces across North America now, and we all get shot and killed if you're not white, and shiny and happy, you know. Like
Yeah.
you've seen, I'm sure you've seen the uh, in Chinook Mall. There was an anti-masker parade, and the cops were there giving the bro hug, and yeah, no, it was all interconnected, and they were showing the pastor at that church that had like 1,200 people. He was an ex-cop as well and related to the RCMP in that area, and I'm just like, they're so like disgustingly married, and the rest of us just have to deal with it. But anyway, anyway, I'm okay with all of that being said on record. So I still have us recorded it, but if you want me to cut out some of this, I can.
That doesn't matter to me.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Shelly.
It just, yeah, yeah, you see the sign saying, I'm Black and autistic. Please don't shoot.
Yeah, and that's not okay.
No.
Well, it was heartbreaking. The Bear Clan here in Calgary came across a homeless Indigenous person who had a broken wheelchair. So they were trying to get around with a broken wheelchair. And I just can't wrap my head around any society that treats their most vulnerable in this capacity. And I mean, I tried, but you just I don't understand how we can't get everyone on board with these like key human rights issues. Yeah, I know. Anyway, I will let you go. Thank you so much for everything. I so appreciate everything.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate everything you do.
We're awesome. All right.
I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Bye for now,
Okay,
Shelly.
bye.
Bye.